Simagic made one of the best pedal sets I've ever reviewed and is also one of the most affordable pedal sets I've reviewed. Let's have a closer look. So the usual first, the pedals were provided by Simagic, but all the opinions are my own, and Simagic of course did not get to see the review before it's posted and did not have any editorial influence on the script. Let's start with prices. It gets a bit complex here since this is a very modular pedal set. They start at $499 for the 2-pedal set. This comes with a normal load cell brake and the pedal base without any of the fancy LED lights. Topped out as inverted pedals, you pay $699 for the 3-pedal set, also with a load cell brake, and those prices are from Simrace Shop and include taxes. You can support the channel and save 5% by using code Dan5 on checkout, or if you're not in Europe, you can also buy them in the official Simagic store and save 3% with the code Dan3. All the links are in the description. Once you chose your base pedal version, you can then further customize it with several LED modules ranging from 50 to 80 euros. I do have that Ray Heel RGB stop installed here, and there's also a hydraulic add-on for 179 or 189 euros for the inverted version, but we'll talk about whether this is worth it later. And then there's also this Haptic Reactor at 79 euros, which I can highly recommend to get for the brake. And if you add one of those reactors, you will also have to buy the power supply separately, which is 19 euros, but you just need one power supply even if you add 3 of the reactors. So as you can see, you can either get the base pedal set for $499 or spec them out to the max, bringing the price over 1,000 euros. And a little spoiler at the beginning here, if I was not using the Simagic pedals, this would be the pedal set I would be using right now. And before we go into details, if you like the content I put out here, then please hit that like button and help bring that video over 1,000 likes. That would be cool. Comment also always helps with engagement, so if you have any questions or comments, please post them down below. Also, the majority of people watching these videos are actually not subscribed. Maybe hit that button, it's free. But let's start with build quality of the pedals. There's absolutely nothing to criticize here. Everything is made out of CNC machined aluminum with very nice looking red accents. I mean, of course, purple would be better, but we'll let that slip here. All the pivot points use bearings and there's absolutely zero flex anywhere. Even tiny details like those red CNC'd washers that you can see here show the attention to detail that Simagic put into these. So yeah, overall, I'm insanely impressed by the build quality. There's one thing that I don't like, and that is the integrated heel rest. It could be a tiny bit longer, it's relatively short, and my heels often sit right at the edge of it, but this might be a personal problem of mine. I've never seen anyone else mention this, so it could just be a me thing. But yeah, let's start with the throttle pedal. When I received these pedals about 2 months ago, I honestly was a little bit shocked at how light the throttle pedal was. Even at the strongest setting, it felt insanely light, probably even lighter than the VRS throttle. But also at this point, I think it's time to talk about how great Simagic is at listening to feedback, because there are now optional stronger springs in the box, which allow you to set up the throttle to your liking, resulting in a significantly stiffer feeling throttle. What I have done is just installing one of the clutch springs in the throttle. It fit just fine, and now it's much higher resistance and feels good to me. But if you had the initial 2-pedal set without the clutch, without the springs, then you would have to deal with a very light throttle. But like I said, if you buy it now, this is not a problem anymore. Adjustability is fairly standard and reasonably quick to do. You can adjust the angle of the pedal arm indirectly with the pedal face adjustment. And for that, you just loosen these 2 screws on the side here. And then you can basically adjust the angle of the pedal face and also resulting the angle of the pedal arm in a specific range, and then just tighten the screws again once you found your position that you like. Just keep in mind, this is pretty much pedal face angle and pedal arm angle adjustment in one. There are pedal sets out there where you can adjust these individually, but to be honest, with these convex pedal faces, I don't really think it's a big problem. The position of the pedal face itself can be adjusted in several positions. You have several holes on the pedal face, and there are also several holes below this that hold that in different places. The pedal travel is adjustable by moving this little end stop here. Even in the shortest setting, the travel is fairly long, like this is the shortest setting for the throttle. I personally like it like this, but if you want a very short throw throttle, you're probably out of luck and you should look at other pedals unless you want to modify them. The end stops are very silent, it's all dampened by rubbers, and this is a very quiet pedal set in general. The resistance of the pedal can be adjusted in several ways. You can either swap springs, there are now several options in the box, or you can adjust where this bolt attaches to the pedal arm. If you want a stiffer pedal, then use the upper mounting point. With a strong clutch spring that I put in here, I actually went with the lower mounting point, and this feels very nice to me. Third option would be by adjusting the preload on the spring by loosening this little nut here and then rotating the shaft to add a little bit of preload to the spring. The pedal position is read out by this contactless hall sensor, which will not result in any mechanical wear and should last forever. Then to adjust the spacing of the pedals, there are holes in the pedal plate, 3 positions for each pedal, so you can adjust the gap between the pedals in specific ranges, but it's not a completely free adjustment like on other pedal sets. The pedal faces actually look pretty cool, but they are a little bit uncomfortable if you drive with socks, because the screws are rather recessed in these quite big holes, and you can just feel them with your foot if you're not wearing any shoes. And it's actually fine for the throttle, but it can be a little bit uncomfortable on the brake if you use higher brake pressures. But yeah, let's talk about the brake next. The adjustability for ergonomics is pretty much the same as on the throttle pedal. And here the relatively large holes for the pedal faces are in fact uncomfortable if you use socks and high brake pressures. A solution where the heads of the screws sit more flush with the surface of the pedal face would be better. The brake uses a load cell to determine the pressure onto the pedal face, both with the standard brake and also with the hydraulic brake. You can also use a Hall sensor to measure the pedal position, or like the angle of the pedal arm, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense. This is how some of the cheaper pedals work. And I want to start talking about the standard brake, which in my opinion is what most people should just buy. It's a very simple concept. This here is attached to the pedal arm, and then this sits at the load cell, and basically you push this elastomer assembly against this ball head screw, resulting in a pressure onto the load cell. The elastomer stack is inside of this tube. Let's quickly have a look. And it has something what I would like to call a soft two-stage design, because once you compress the elastomers, the stiffness will get progressively stiffer due to this lentil design of the elastomers. And also with the tube around the elastomer stack, the elastomers will get protected to be squished beyond specification. You do get 4 different strengths of elastomers in the box. You have the red ones, which are the hardest, then blue, gray, and black. You can mix and match those to your liking, and I think everybody will find a position that works for them. And talking about elastomers, I think Stellian from Race Beyond Matter made an interesting video about this some month ago, where he talked about how the brake pressure reading significantly gets lower when he tried to maintain a specific brake pressure, or more like a specific position of the pedal. I did not experience the issue that he was seeing with these pedals, but I guess in the end it kind of depends how your muscle memory is trained. Let's get a little bit more into detail here. Elastomers are viscoelastic, which brings in theory 4 problems. First problem, hysteresis. That means that the stress-strain relationship depends on the past history of strains and stresses, also known as pushing the pedal. When a pedal with elastomer components is pressed and released, the force response might differ between the compression and the release phases. Second problem, temperature dependency. The travel to force ratio on your brake pedal will be dependent on the temperature of the elastomer. So in a long gaming session, when your ambient temperature varies, this will slightly change. In theory, the elastomer probably also can heat up if you brake a lot, but to be honest, I'm not sure how significant that really is. Third problem, creep and stress relaxation. Creep is gradual deformation under constant stress, and stress relaxation is decrease in stress under constant strain. Think of it as if the elastomer material will flow inside the elastomer itself to rearrange its internal structure to this new deformed shape. And what this actually means for a brake pedal, the force needed to hold your pedal in the same position will change slightly. I think this is exactly what Stellian was seeing. And then the fourth problem, dynamic response. Viscoelastic materials can have different responses to changing loads compared to static loads. If the load cell in the pedal is designed to measure a static force accurately, it might have less accuracy in dynamic scenarios, like rapid pedal presses, for example. However, in sim racing pedals, the absolute position of the pedal is less critical than the force exerted on the pedal face, which is what the load cell primarily measures. The load cell is designed to convert mechanical force into an electrical signal, regardless of the pedal's exact position. So let's say if you swap from a very, very soft elastomer stack to a solid elastomer stack, you will get significantly different travel when you apply, for example, 50 kilograms, but the load cell will always convert these 50 kilograms in exactly the same electric signal. So as long as the force exerted correlates consistently with the electrical signal from the load cell, the viscoelastic nature of the elastomer will not significantly impact the overall performance for sim racing applications. So to sum it up, it's not really an issue for a sim racing brake pedal, since you're only interested in the force you apply on the pedal face and not the travel the pedal will do when applying this pressure. So if you hold a constant 70 kilograms on the pedal face, the load cell will always output those 70 kilograms. The pedal will travel insignificantly though while holding those 70 kilograms. However, if your muscle memory is trained for positional accuracy, this can be an issue, and you can use the Hall sensor to measure the pedal position. This is how it's done in Logitech G29 pedals or Ezotech Forte pedals, for example. I personally would not recommend to use the Hall sensor, since then you just have a fancier G29 pedal set, but in the end you just have to try whatever works best for you and not what random people on the internet tell you. Always try everything yourself. Only because it works for me doesn't mean it will work for you. If this was the case, we wouldn't need any adjustment on sim racing gear, but it's there for a reason, so don't be afraid to use it. Okay, I hope I didn't lose you here with a bit of engineering talk. Also, I'm not guaranteeing that what I said is 100% accurate. In the end, I'm an electrical engineer and not a materials engineer, so if you know better, please post a comment down below. But I would say we'll go back to the brake pedal. I personally think the Elastomer brake feels perfectly fine, but also Simagic has been listening as well here, and there will be spring options for the brake if you prefer that feel over an Elastomer. And there will also be some metal spacers that limit Elastomer compression in this kit. I really like those on the hydraulic option, so let's talk about this next. Would I buy the hydraulic kit as of today? Yes, I would. I don't think it feels significantly different than the non-hydraulic version, but it does come with these metal spacers which give a better progressive feel for the whole brake. Once the kit is released with the spacers and springs for the normal brake, I don't think I would get the hydraulic option, to be honest. However, I do think the hydraulic module looks kind of cool, and sometimes we just have to make unreasonable decisions and just buy what we want, even if it doesn't make a lot of sense objectively. And even with the hydraulic brake module, the pressure of the brake pedal is still measured with the load cell. Usually hydraulic pedals do have a pressure sensor that measures the pressure within the hydraulic fluid, which directly correlates to the force applied to the brake master cylinder. If you now use a load cell and measure the pressure of the whole stack, you will also include the forces absorbed by the pedal structure, bushings or linkages. In the end, I don't think it matters at all. With Simagic's implementation, all you get is probably a more accurate and less dampened reading of the pressure onto the pedal face, while still retaining this hydraulic feel. In theory, a pressure sensor mimics the feedback and feel of a real hydraulic brake system more accurately though. I mean, in the end, the hydraulic brake still compresses elastomers, and the only difference is that with the standard brake, you directly push with this rod onto the elastomers. On the hydraulic brake, you push the master cylinder, which increases the pressure in the hydraulic fluid and then compresses this elastomer stack in the slave cylinder. The elastomers look slightly different in the hydraulic brake and are also easier to exchange, since all you have to do is unscrew this giant black part and then you have access to the elastomer stack. I went with this combo here with 2 red, 3 blue, 1 is hidden in this, and 3 of the gold aluminum spacers. That feels very good to me, gives a nice progressive feel of the brake. I love it. Let's actually put this back together. So just pretty much put these back in. Screw the black cap back on and you're done. Overall, the brake feels very good, both with the standard piston and with the hydraulic add-on, and the maximum achievable brake pressure was also more than sufficient for me. The clutch does come with 3 different springs to adjust the strength, and apart from the simulation of the bite point, obviously, this has the same adjustments as the throttle, and it feels decent to me, but I'm just no expert when it comes to clutches. Then what you see on the back of the brake here is the Haptic pedal reactor, which is a little device that lets you put several effects onto the pedals. You mount it onto the rear of the pedals, you need to remove the pedal face, then use some of the screws and the adapter plate to mount this, and then you just plug it into one of those DC barrel jacks, and you can either use it with the Simagic software for a few effects, or what I would recommend, with SimHub. There's so many possibilities when paired with SimHub, with the most obvious ones being the ABS and tire lock effects for the brake. You can also put effects on the throttle like tire slip or traction control, but I found that not insanely immersive or helpful. What I would recommend is to get one of the reactors for your brake. It truly helps a lot with the braking, especially for all the non-aliens among us. It even supports tire lock effects on iRacing, even though it's more of an approximation on SimHub and feels more like a tire slip when braking kind of effect. However, it can still help immensely with trail braking feel, because you feel how much brake pressure you can apply depending on the current speed of the car. Then I guess ABS effects is pretty much self-explanatory. The pedal will vibrate if you trigger the ABS, and that way you know that you should decrease the brake pressure. The strength of the effect turned up to 100% can be super strong and also super audible. Let me show you. I'm pretty sure this can be heard. This is 100% at 29 Hertz. If I put this lower to 20, it will become even louder. It is very, very loud. I mean, it's now even louder because the whole desk resonates with it. However, you will never really use that at 100%. I turned mine down quite a bit to like 20-30%, where they become quiet and can still be felt very well on the pedal. In terms of effect feeling, it doesn't feel too different from the Simucube. Maybe the effect on the Simucube pedals feels a little bit smoother, while these Haptic reactors are a bit more violent and abrupt when applying the effect. I can't really tell you if that's better or worse though, it's just personal preference. However, these effects do feel very good. Also, I think we'll open one up to see how it works, because it's pretty much just an electric magnet. It does mainly consist of two parts. We have here this little, let's call it coil, that will create a magnetic field when current flows through it. And then we have this pretty heavy metal part with also a permanent magnet in there. This sits on top here. And if I connect this to an electric source, let's quickly do that here. This thing is just a variable power supply that is set to 20 volts right now. I think this goes up to 24 volts, but you will see the effect also at 20 volts. And if I turn on the power, you see this is how it works. And then if you set it to 20 Hertz, for example, it will actually like change the signal through this coil here 20 times per second. And this creates the haptic effect on the back of the pedal. So yeah, very interesting concept. It's not a rumble motor like on many other pedals. It's actually this really, really heavy silver metal weight that gets shaken around in the reactor. But I think before I lose all the screws, we'll quickly put this back together. And here, I guess if I turn this on and off, you can probably see it jump on the pedal base. So yeah, this is how the thing works. You can easily adapt this to other pedals, since you can buy these separately, and Simagic also has a little control electronic that you can buy. It's meant for the P1000 pedals, but you can use it for any pedal set. I made a video about how to use them on the VRS or SimGrade pedals, for example. Check it out, I'll put the link in the description. Talking about the LED options, there's this LED heel rest, and then there's also an LED bar that you can put below the pedals. I mean, if you like it, add it to your pedals. If not, save yourself the money, but keep in mind that the more RGB you have, the quicker you are. I only added the RGB heel stopper so others still have a chance. When you go into the software, you can either put a static color, or you can have some breathing or color cycles going on this thing. Or one thing that is kind of cool is the pedal follow, which basically shows you the pedal telemetry. For example, now it's set to brake. So when I apply brake pressure, I mean, obviously with my hand, I cannot really do it. It will go red. If I set this to throttle, it will obviously follow my throttle inputs. My throttle right now is not properly calibrated. That's why it will stay a little bit on green. But typically it will just exactly show you the pedal inputs. What would be nice is if you could do combined, for example, that throttle goes from left to the right and then brake goes from right to the left. I mean, typically you will never be on throttle and on the brake at the same time unless you do rally. It would be another nice option for Simagic to add to the software. But yeah, I typically just have this set to a static color. Looks better on the camera. Then this heel stopper is adjustable in position. There are several preset holes, so you can move it to the front, to the back. I have it in the closest position here, but like I said, my heels, like I have this weird position on the pedals that my heels are typically like here, so it doesn't really do anything apart from looking pretty. If you do not buy the LED heel rest, it still comes with an aluminum heel rest in red and does exactly the same thing. And of course, I also had a look at the electronics. Everything looks good here. There's a small little board on the back here. You can see there's the cover on top here, but it's everything on there. There's the RGB LED controller, there's the haptic motor control unit, and of course also the processor for USB communication and ADC reading. And then there's also this small breakout board that you can see here, but that pretty much just distributes the signal for the haptic motors and has the DC barrel jacks that you can access from the top. And let's quickly have a look at the software, but it's pretty much, it has everything that you need the software to do. You have the calibration for throttle, brake and clutch. This will obviously now not make a lot of sense because I cannot push the brake a lot. One thing I see here is there's a slight delay from pushing the pedals to actually seeing the value updating. Not a big deal, but it's there. Then you can do custom curves with only 4 points. I wish there were maybe a bit more. You cannot add additional ones. There are a few preset curves that you can use. I typically like to do a slight logarithmic curve on the brake personally. You can also do tricks like limiting your brake output to, let's say, 86% or something. Don't do these tricks with pedals like that. It's better to train your muscle memory and properly learn how to brake than doing these little tricks. I think it's fine if you have cheap pedals, G29 pedals, no load cell, whatever, then it can help. But if you have proper pedals like that, don't do it. Then you can, in theory, add effects in here. For example, here I just have one mounted to the brake. You could put ABS or clutch. If you set this to clutch, it will just like vibrate when you hit the bite point on the brake. I would use ABS, but to be honest, I would just not use the Simagic software for this. I would just use SimHub. This is fully supported, and SimHub basically works like a butt kicker. You have tons of effects there. Use SimHub. It can be a little bit intimidating at first, but take some time, buy a license, and enjoy the much better effect support for every game in SimHub. And then with the lights, this is the stuff that I just talked about. Here you can adjust single color, breathing, cycle, or pedal follow. And you can also create different presets depending on the game. Yeah. The software is nice, it can do everything that you need a software to do and works relatively well. The only thing that is slightly odd with the software, the readings that you get for the brake seems wrong to me. I don't know if this is the pressure onto the pedal face or if it's the pressure that the load cell sees, because this is obviously not the same thing. But I would assume it's the load cell reading because those values that you see there are significantly lower than what I see, for example, with the Simagic pedals. I know I hit about 70, 80 kilograms in my sweet spot of braking, and the Simagic pedals would just show it as 40 or so. It's not a big deal, but I think it does not show the pressure you put onto the brake pedal. Alright, when using these pedals on track, they perform insanely well. The only minor issue that I have is, like mentioned earlier, the slightly short heel rest and uncomfortable pedal plates when driving without shoes. However, I did readjust my position on the pedals in the meantime and don't have any problems with the heel plate anymore. The throttle pedal has a very nice resistance when using the stronger spring and overall feels very good. The quite long travel helps when applying throttle out of the corners, but for some people this travel will probably be a bit too much. The addition of a damper would be a nice option, but looking at the price of the pedals, what we are getting is very good. Both brake modules feel very good. I use the hydraulic one because it supports the aluminum spacers, which give a very nice progressive feel to the brake, which helps me with the trail braking. Once Simagic releases the brake kit with the springs and aluminum spacers for the normal brake, I think I would be just as happy with this. With a similar elastomer configuration, I can't really tell them apart, to be honest. Whatever this hydraulic feel is that some people talk about, I can't feel it. Signal stability of the output signal is very good, resolution 12-bit, more than plenty, and the trail braking feel is also very good. It is even better if you add one of the Haptic reactors to get a better feel of what the car is doing on the track. I can't stress enough how beneficial this can be, especially when you're not one of the crazy sim racing aliens. It is hard to actually find competitors for these pedals, to be honest, since every pedal set that comes close is significantly more expensive. Comparing it to more budget-friendly options like the VRS DFP pedals, for example, I do think the P1000 pedals are just the better choice. The build quality is far superior, the brake is better to adjust due to way more options you have in the Elastomer stack. Fun fact, according to the manual, there are 27,648 different Elastomer combos that you can put in here. Everybody should find a setting that works for them with this. I mean, don't get me wrong, the VRS pedals are amazing pedals, but they feel a bit lacking compared to the P1000. Another good option to look at would be the SimGrade VX Pro with one of those reactors added. Also feels very good. I do think a strong contender could be the P1 Sim Mistral pedals. They also come with haptics in the form of rumble motors and have a similar price point. I will put these on the rig and let you know how they compare in a few weeks. I also briefly tested the Conspit pedals with integrated haptics, and while those are also decent pedals, I just preferred the brake feel of the Simagic pedals. Also, the Simagic haptic reactors are way stronger and more noticeable than the rumble motors used in those. I would also think that the SRP pedals modded to fit one of the reactors would be a very, very nice option to consider. I just love the feel of those pneumatic pistons. And I think another pedal set that needs to be mentioned here are the Simacube Active pedals, obviously, even though they are insanely more expensive. I mean, the Simacube Active pedals are the best pedals that I have ever reviewed, and at a price of over 4,000 euros for the two pedal set, they better be. But actually, the feeling of the effects of those P1000 with the reactors is pretty close. This obviously only applies to the rumble effects like ABS or brake lock and not effects that alter the pedal position. Pedals do get better and better over time, so this is also why newer options often beat older pedals in my opinion. I think Simacube started the trend with haptics on pedals, making it more popular, and now more manufacturers implement haptics into their pedals, which is nice to see for us users. The Simacube pedals definitely have way more options than these, and in my opinion are worth it for the ease of adjustability and ability to just alter the whole pedal set with one mouse click. But if you don't need or want that, then my current recommendation would be to get the P1000 pedals with the standard brake and one haptic reactor. I would also highly recommend to grab the brake kit once it's available if you want a more progressive brake. These pedals are as good or better than way more expensive options out there, and I think Simagic did an amazing job of delivering a product like this at a price point that is not that out of reach for many. But yeah, as you can probably tell, I think the P1000 pedals are absolutely great and definitely get my approval. If you're looking for a pedal set for 500 euros, then definitely check these out. And if you're looking for a pedal set for 1,500 euros, honestly, I probably would still recommend these. That's it for the review. It was a bit longer today, I'm sorry. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, bye bye.